blanket for the shins, starting with a little nadi shodhana. Well, one version of nadi shodhana, anyway. So that is, in this version, it's a cleansing practice for the nadis, or the nadis, Ida and Pingala. Anyway, nadi meaning energy channel, from the root nad, meaning to flow. So a nadi is an energy channel, a nadi is a river, and they both come from the same root, nad, to flow. So we're going to make ourselves comfortable. Cross-legged position with a blanket under the shins, 2 blocks. We're going to take a hand position that's like this, a little pincer, like a little crab. And with that little pincer, we're going to digitally control the nostrils. Some people prefer, I don't know, some people do it like this. That's fine if you want, I don't. So some people control it, hang on, I'll try to do it, I never do it like this, like that. But I find myself, having my fingers curled back on my forehead, I can control much more sensitively with the tips, the very tips of the fingers. So what we're going to do is, in a moment, we're going to take a deep breath in and then a deep breath out of all the air. Our first inhale will be through the left nostril only. So the right will be closed and the left will be partially open. So it will be like this, left nostril partially open, close the left, right nostril partially open, breathe out for it. Breathe back in through the one you breathed out of, partially open. Breathe out of the opposite, partially open. So whether you're breathing in or out, your nostrils just partially open. You're not fully closed. And you just go in, out, in, out.
Can you close the other one all the way?
Yeah.
So you're opening and closing?
Yeah, you close the one that you're not using at that moment, whether it's in or out. So if I'm breathing in through the left, I've totally closed the right, partially open the left, and then close that one off, partially open the other one. Does that make sense? Okay, so we can begin when we're ready. We're going to start with the left nostril inhalation. It's useful to make sure your head is level, not turn to the left or right. Couple more rounds. When you next come to exhale on the right, that's how we'll end, with an exhale on the right. So this just makes the circulation between the Ida and the Pingala channels, the left and the right channel, a little more easy. And then we want to bring the energies of those 2 channels together, which is one of the reasons why the sun and moon are often represented in iconography, like there behind me. You can see there's a sun and moon, sun and the moon, and they represent the channels, usually. They also represent male and female energy. They also represent night and day. So, but mostly the male and female energies coming together. So we're going to do that by freeing up the central channel with an Om going right the way through 3 times. So When you're ready, taking your first deep breath in. Oh. And then breathing deep to relax. So it's very, very effective, depending on, of course, the practitioner's level of commitment, which for it to be effective has to be total commitment to feeling what you're feeling and intending the energy to move through the central channel. And the whole point of bringing these energies together in the middle is that we come out of any kind of bias, we come into a sort of stable, centered, non-dual, advaita it's called, which just means not two, position. And of course, the position of division, dvaita, two, is the grounds under which one suffers, the grounds under which one causes suffering. And so to escape from that, coming into the central channel by cleansing all three channels and ending with the central cleansing, and then focusing attention. Some hatha texts tell us to focus on the space within the central channel, which it's worth saying, again, is something we create through our intention, our visualization. It's just making the idea of non-duality, which makes a lot of sense to us all, of course, the idea of non-duality, making it holistic. Not just an idea, but something we have a visceral correlate for. Okay, lovely as it is to sit in the non-dual center, I could just lose / find myself there. I'm going to put the block to one side and stretch out the legs and just give them a little whatever legs need in the morning, little twiddle at the topsies. That's a made-up word, topsies for toes. And we're going to draw one leg, let's say the right one, draw that back. If you need more than 2 blocks to sit on, by all means, take more than 2 and sit up as tall as you can with one leg folded back in virasana, vira, being cognate with the English word virile, often translated as hero, often associated with yogis who go out to meet yoginis, which are fierce demigod beings that we find in tantric texts. Anyway, we're going to bend back the other leg, wrap the fingers around the shin, lift lightly the lower back, keeping the jaw soft. Lift lightly the lower back, keeping the jaw soft. So using your hands on your shin to create lift, to create elevation, to create lightness. And of course, most important, to breathe into those qualities, lift and lightness, to breathe into those qualities. So it's a meditation. Yoga is a meditation. And it's a meditation on lightness, the Sanskrit word lagu, light. So in the first of my unpublished books on my computer at home, I should make more effort to get them published. I made the effort to write them and then stopped there. In the first of my unpublished books, there's some beautiful artwork done by Nate Cordery of a dandelion seed. Because the metaphor of lightness is like that, like a dandelion seed, and the dandelion seed moves with tiny air currents that we can't even feel on our skin. So it's super receptive. So when we're talking about being light, we're comparing that to the tradition of Jainism and their focus on dropping heavy karmic particles, which are particles of bias, particles of karma, particles of conditioning. So you drop, you relax, you release, you find santosha, contentment. And then you can become spontaneous, which is what yoga is all about, spontaneity. Because you're light enough. It's impossible to be spontaneous if you're filled with bias, isn't it? So this is a sort of a version of pranayama. Okay, we're going to come to the other side of the same version of pranayama. So we're going to straighten out the leg, straighten out the other one, fold back the leg, shin tucks under so that the thigh rolls out, bend up the other, and then lift as light as you can. So lightness isn't just a physical quality, it's a mental quality, because there's no such thing as just a body. One can't find, while a person is conscious anyway, one can't find a body that's not also the mind. They relate to each other in a regular functioning being. So firstly, breathe freely. Secondly, explore happily, lovingly, sukha, meaning happy. Look for lightness that has to be mental as well as physical, as well as respiratory, that necessarily has the quality of dropping ballast, like a hot air balloon. It wants to go higher, it drops the weight, and then it can fly higher. So similarly, we're shedding karmic particles by entering into a state of santosha, which is a state that is free of greed, which is one of the qualities that attracts karmic particles to us, according to Jainism, but also alluded to in Buddhism as well. So lightness, breath, movement, physical lightness, mental lightness. We can translate it all as, through one word, openness. To be open. What a relief that is in a world that seems to really value strong opinions and polarized states and us and them and goodies and baddies and in-groups and out-groups. To focus instead on lightness. And to make that clear by making it visceral, by making it physical, rather than a concept that could easily be falsely approximated. We're going to slow and calm release. We're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana, that is the downward facing dog. Now, for this, we can retain the usage of our blockages, our blocks, if we wish. And it may be that you need more height than this. The blocks will go roughly underneath one's navel. I should take off this cardigan to show willing. Because when you come into this version of Adho Mukha Svanasana, it is the crown only that comes very lightly onto a block or two blocks or a block and a blanket. But what we don't want to do is squash the neck at all. What we're doing all the time is focusing meditatively on contact with the palms, optimal contact with the palms, increasing that contact, deepening that contact so that our effort to push up through the pose is increased by more contact with the palms. So scanning through what part of the palm feels lighter. If you move your body left, right, forwards and backwards, can you feel more of, say, the inner palm or the outer palm or the front of the palm or the back of the palm? So holistically gathering, not collapsing onto the block at all, always lifting and only placing, if anything, the crown of the head as light as you possibly can be. Well done, everybody. Come down as calmly as you can. Put 2 blocks ahead of you, and you'll need a pata or a patika, a belt. So, I'm not sure if you got one there or not. Here. Oh, there's one there. Anyway, no, that's a nice one. And anyone else? Oh, got belt. So we're going to start. We're going to do a version of Dandasana using blocks for the heels, which might seem counterintuitive, but I'll explain. So by bringing the heels up, you bring the top of the thigh bones down, which makes a space for the pelvis to come into. But first we should draw the buttock flesh out and back. Then we're going to bring the pata around the feet. Then we're going to pull on the pata and look for lightness again, lagu. So breathing through your nose, look for lightness. You might move left, you might move right, you might move forwards, you might move backwards, but it's beyond thinking, because thinking can't cope. You've probably noticed that. Thinking can't really cope with a lot of things, unless it has certain conditions, you know. Sometimes thinking, it gets very, very confused. We get confused when we're using thinking, because it often presents 2 views, and it's hard to know which one's right unless you decide, you know, goodies and baddies, in groups, out groups. And those decisions might be made on personal bias, or they might be made on the amount of people around you who have a particular view, if you're using thinking. But if you use your heart, or the heart, I should say, which is another way of saying openness. You think about, when we talk about love, when we talk about the heart, that's about openness. That's about love for all beings. You know, even difficult beings. And it doesn't mean that we give difficult beings power. You know, it means, but you know, it means we see them as they are. Difficult beings sometimes are very, very afraid. You know, terrified even. If you know, if your heart is open, you can see that. And then compassion brings about the right action for all beings. So as you're pulling and lifting and investigating and breathing, the intuition is coming from the heart. Obviously, movement is going to be part of that intuition, because it helps to massage, it helps to avoid some scaric actions that are, we can say, driven by bias that's in the nervous system. Might be that you had certain life events that have caused certain views to feel more correct than others. So breathing, 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 and focusing on lightness. And lightness is love, because lightness is open. It's not holding anything. And love is wisdom, because it's open to the way things are. It can receive things as they are, rather than as we think they should be, or as we want them to be, or as we believe them to be. Okay. Groovy, as yogis of the 70s may have said. So put, or maybe the 60s, we're going to put, take a cork block if you've got one. The other kind of blocks are okay, otherwise it doesn't have to be cork, but the brick shape is what I'm talking about. And that's going to go behind our back, and you might want one or two, or no other blocks. So if you start with one or two, then you'll get a better feeling of whether you want one or two or none. The cork block, other blocks can be used as well, goes into the back at a position that lifts your chest up. And then you can have blocks, as I say, for your head, or you can have, if you feel comfortable with no blocks, you can have that. A little bit of shimmying can really get the blocks in the right position. The legs are together, perhaps the feet as well, but it depends on your dimensions and shape. The arms are stretched out. The tummy is lightly toned, so it's drawn in, and the chest is open. And we avoid tightness in the lower back by keeping this light tone all the time through the pose. It's not fixed, it's responsive, but it is light tone. So legs together, chest open, arms stretched out, breathing through the nose, light tone in the tummy. And so it's dynamic. We're not just laying with a brick in our backs. we're investigative, we're awake. We've got tone in the tum. We've got stretch in the ribs. We've got length in the back. We're able to respond to the needs of the moment. It might help to open your ribs. Stay focused, surf the moment. Try not to drift off. Okay, well done. Bend your legs and slowly roll off your lift. Come up easily from the side and sit on one or two or even three blocks with your legs out in front of you. If you're on two or more blocks, you'll definitely need another block behind you, a cork block, or other materials are available. The legs are going over. I have to say that sort of thing because I work at the BBC. Let's keep neutral here at the Brighton Buddhist Centre. The legs go over to one side towards Sovereign House, and the shin of one leg goes into the foot arch of the other, and we lift and shift until we can feel the tissues of the legs are balanced. The groins are soft, the knees are soft, and then we lift and turn without lifting the back leg. We lift and turn away from the feet. But this is where you might use the block for your hand behind you. So this is Bharadvajasana, a very Buddhist pose, one has to say. And Buddhist monks commonly sit like this. I have to admit, I rather like the color of my leggings, trousers, I don't know what you call them, because they're very Buddhist monk. Makes me feel it's like a little homage. So breathing calmly through the nose, relaxing your back leg, relaxing your bum, relaxing any sort of distortion of the spine sideways. Takes quite a lot of honesty and a bit of backpedaling as well, which we want to do in yoga. So Jainism and yoga both use the word aparigraha, which means not really grasping, Just remember, when we're in a sense of grasping, then karmic particles stick to us. We become heavy. Our view becomes very, very partial, very biased. And we lose our flexibility in terms of our ability to adapt. Release and return to center. Stretch out your legs when you're ready. If your knees need a little TLC, because knees are tiny, very sort of joint that really take a lot of strain, actually, poor things. We have to give them lots of love. And then we're going to bring the legs over to the other side when we feel ready, similarly. Again, the shin goes into the foot arch. Again, some lifting and shifting of the pelvis. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Inhale, lift and turn. And breathing through your nose if you can. Relax the jaw, relax the tendency to reach out. It's called upadana. Upadana means reaching out, or is translated as reaching out, but more literally means fuel. In other words, upadana is what fuels, this reaching out is what fuels the constant cycles of reactivity that the yoga tradition calls samsara. So if you notice any reaching out tendencies, I definitely feel them quite a lot. My life's sometimes quite busy and quite task-centered. I like a tidy house. So empty of grasping, aparigraha. Okay, return calmly to center and dismount. And we're going to fold this end of our mat over and refold it for luxury, for reasons to do with luxury and comfort. We're going to use a purple block. And we're going to kneel. And we're going to have another brick in our hands. We can use any kind of blocks for this, but if you got what I've got, then use what I've got. The foot is going to come onto the purple block, and this standing leg is going to be slightly sloping, so the hip in, the groin up. The heel lines up with the knee, so check that. And then lean over to your block and raise up one hand and turn the bottom ribs forwards. It's that hand that you're looking baffled with that has the block. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, it can go behind your leg though. No, don't be sorry. I love you. You're actually my favorite Barbara. And don't forget, there is Barbara Windsor as well. I could have chosen Barbara Windsor. Breathe through the nose. I could have chosen Barbara Streisand. Mm-hmm. So, the competition's quite high. I think I've run out of Barbaras now. Breathing through the nose. Yeah, there's not that many Barbaras, are there? Well, no. Well, yes, I suppose it does. The name does. But then people are baffled by it. You can't be Barbara. You might look so much younger than a Barbara should look. Inhale, come on up. Well done. If you're zooming at home, perhaps you're listing other Barbaras that I haven't mentioned. And let's go to the other side. My brain is actually half working on it still. Aren't that many, are there? Surprising. The hip joint, so not the side body. You probably are. Most people are. But the yogic advice around that is to stop doing that. So it's a hamstring stretch. The reason we side flex is because we avoid the hamstring stretch. So we do this instead of this. So it's a pelvic movement that we're looking for. In fact, you can put your hands on your pelvis, just tip it forwards and backwards a little bit, as if it was some sort of pitcher, like a jug or something, and you want to tip the water out of the pitcher. And then your hand comes to your block, whatever height you want to use. So it does take quite a lot of discipline. Or automatic behavior is to side flex, but you just make it illegal. You just refuse. You almost need to sort of put splints down the side of your body so you can't move the side of the body. And then the only way you're going to get there is side flexing. And that's a big hamstring stretch, which is perhaps why the body tries to find a sort of a way around it. Turning and looking up, breathing. Yeah. So what we need, Barbara, is just to sort of strap 2 bits of wood to the sides of you so you can't side bend. Little. Another way to practice at home is to stretch your arm up to a wall so you know it's straight. You just come to a wall like that, and then maybe something a bit lower, and something a bit lower, and something a bit lower. You see how I have to concentrate to make me move from the right place. So you end up like that. Sort of. Inhale, come on up. I remember working with Gwyneth once, a graduate of the school, and we did about an hour at hers, a one-to-one, just getting her to move from the hip. And then she could do it after that, because it's just the mind, you just got to go, no, side bend, no, 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 over and over again. And eventually, it gets it. Yeah, eventually. It's like our cat. I keep telling him, no, not on the work surface, no, no, no. And eventually, well, actually, he's already got it, I think. He's already got it. Not to say he won't sneak up there if he thinks I'm not looking. Our new cat, Zaphod, who we're very fond of, actually, already. He's a cheeky fellow, clever fellow, who very much likes to eat plants, house plants. So I have to get out of his way. Okay, we're going to the first side again. This time we're going to have our leg bent in a way that I think is quite pantomime-y, which is something that's deeply ingrained in my system. Pantomime vibe, as my dad liked all that sort of malarkey. The campest dad in the world, Melvin Peter Tarran. May you rest your beautiful soul, Melvin, in your lovely cravat up in heaven or wherever. Stretch up your arm, breathe through your nose, and turn. There was more to him than that, a lot more. Turning the body, breathing through your nose. Jaw soft. Throat soft. So you can have the brick any height. If you want it lower, that's, you might want it lower. Do the versions of Prāṇaśarīra. Bottom ribs forwards, if you can. That's nice, Barbara. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Bottom ribs forwards. Keep your top arm straight if you can. Good job. And inhale. Come on up. Good morning, everyone. Second side. Similarly. I'm really promoting that word similarly, as it's likely to drop out of the vocabulary because it has rather too many syllables. But it's ever so pleasant in the mouth, so I'm trying to keep it going. Similarly. To have a go at it later, double dare to try and get it in a sentence today. Turning and straight. You could say something like, it's raining today, similarly to yesterday. Turning and breathe. So bottom ribs forwards, jaw relax, any height you want with the brick. You know, after a while, sometimes it feels like you want to take it lower. That's fine if you do. Bottom ribs forwards, breathing deep. Light tone in the tum as well in the tummy. Okay, groovy. Come on up. And by come on up, I mean, come on up. That's why I use the words. Step to the left side of your mat with a brick block. You can use the other kind of block if you haven't got a brick block. So left foot on the left side of the mat. Let's just all make sure that is occurring. And then left toes in, turning on the ball of the right foot, finishing off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch alignment. A generous stride like I've got here, similar. A few years ago, as Melvin Peter Tarran was dying, rather sadly, and he was very brave, but unfortunately I had to pick him up a few times, and I just measured myself the other day. I've lost an inch of height because I damaged my spine. Anyway, I'm now 5'8.5". I used to be 5'9.5". I just was shocked to find out. And this is the stride I take. So if you're taller than me, firstly, don't rub it in. And secondly, make sure your stride's at least this long. Stretching up, inhale, exhale. I had to share that with people there. I'm a bit shocked that I've lost an inch of height. But that happens to everyone to some extent, doesn't it? Turning and breathing, embracing life. How about trying that in this present moment? Because all of this is life, isn't it? You know, the stretch, the breath, everything. Arm down, bend your front knee, walk your back foot towards your front foot. Keep walking in, move the block over, keep walking, keep walking. And if you're ready, raise up. The block should be lined up with your 4 outer toes. You can have it on its highest height, or you can have it on a lower setting if you wish. Oops. Lower setting if you wish. We can even have it a different direction. Some of you might be comfortable enough to take chapasana, where you take your back leg and hold it. Chapa means sugar cane. And the reason this is called chapasana is because it's very common for South Asian deities to be holding a bow that's made of sugar cane, such as Matangi is an example of someone who does that. Some versions of Tara. Okay, that's beautiful. Coming down by bending your front knee, stretching back to your trikonasana. And again, this is free of side bend. And Barbara, you are free of side bend. Yes, you are, madam. You are having great success. Inhale, ascend. Successful yoginis. And let us move to the other side of the mat whenever you're ready. Good job, good job, good job. Just checking everything's good with you Zoomers, actually. All good? You can hear me okay and stuff? Yeah, great. Just checking. Okay, back toes in, front foot and leg out. Similarly, raise the block. In the other hand. Yep. Inhale, exhale, come down. Oh, it's beautiful. What a room of magnificence. Turning, enjoying, breathing, surrendering, really enjoy yourself. Bhogaha. Enjoy yourself. I always quite like that song. Enjoy yourself, it's later than you think.
Okay.
See you. Me too now. If you don't like it, I don't like it. Arm down, bend the knee. Walk your back foot in. Come forward. I'm very fickle. You can use a block on the big toe side of the foot. You can, little toe side of the foot, lined up with the 4 outer toes, any height that you want. This, of course, is Ardha Chandrasana, half Chandra, moon. Breathing easy. Again, if you want to, try taking Chapasana. You can, and you can open it up like a bow. It's exciting, isn't it? Beautiful. Bend your knee. Come back to Trikonasana. Make it a good one. Deep breaths, natural breaths, enjoyable. Enjoyable. Inhale. Come on up. Feet face forwards. Well done, everyone. Block it ahead of you, like a sort of cubist version of Adam and Eve. Instead of the leaf, you've got a block. And toes turned in very slightly, and little toes spread out. And you'll realize that that takes many, many a year to come back to spreading those little toes. Never give up on it. It's a very worthwhile project. Because as soon as, when you're spreading the little toes, there's a certain deep calmness that enables that. So, even the effort to spread the little toes will teach you an awful lot about the right approach, which is calmness and repetition. So, abhyasa vairagyabhyam. When you're ready, inhale, exhale, hinge from the hip joints, any height you want with the block, hands on the block, chest forwards by pressing into the block, chest forwards, and breathe through your nose. Feel free to move the pose, to any way that's sort of, I think we all have this super sensual power in us that I think most people anyway, everyone in here, I'm sure understands. All of the roomers, all of the Zoomers that I can see today understand super sensual power. And it's something that's not a thought, and it's not an abstraction either. It's not an idea of being spontaneous. It's something much more grounded than that. It's not sort of being the person who's being spontaneous. Spontaneity necessarily consumes the person disappears. So it's natural, it's sort of more ordinary. It's quite sort of, it's like something that we all have since birth. It's not sort of a mystical power or anything like that. And we can miss it because it is so ordinary, it is so natural. It is so primal. So move in those ways that are natural, ordinary, and primal. And breathe easy. For some people, it feels appropriate to lower the block a little. Fine if you want. Appropriate here means that the hamstring muscles on the back of the legs are being released through a process of time, movement, and reciprocal inhibition, which means there's intelligent tone being created on the front thighs. If the hamstrings keep releasing, then so does the pelvis. And if the pelvis keeps releasing, go with it. So that might mean that you go lower. It might mean you don't. Lower is not what we're trying to achieve here. For some people, and don't forget, it could just mean you've got short legs and a long torso. For some people, it becomes, an obvious choice to rest the head on the brick. Well, that's fine, but it's very easy to start thinking, I'm doing better at yoga the closer my head is to the brick, but it absolutely is not the case. Balancing the weight between inner and outer, front and back. And of course, some people, perhaps with peculiarly short legs and extraordinarily long necks, might not use the block at all. The head comes to the floor, well, that's fine too. This is prāṇaśarīra padottanasana. Keep the breath open, honest, natural, free, expressive. It's like you're surfing, you're constantly balancing the weight ratios and the way the legs work between the front of the leg, the back of the leg, the inner leg, the outer leg, constantly balancing. Back to the block in front of you. If you stopped using the block, obviously, otherwise stay on the block, but we're gradually going to raise the height of the block. If you lowered it, you might not have lowered it. It's not, as I hope I made clear, that's not what this pose is about. When you get to the highest point on your block, then just walk your feet a little closer in, right up on your fingertips if you can. Leave the block, come up on the inhalation. Well done. Walk your feet towards each other and come to lay down on your back, which is often welcome news. So we're laying down on our backs. If your head tips back, please put some head support underneath it if your head tips back. So that's often useful for many people. And many people have very, very tense neck muscles. It often stems from a tense psoas because that tension is pulling us forwards. We might have tense chest muscles too. And so we then end up pulling our heads back to be able to look around us. Obviously, being on your mobile phone for long periods of time is very, very bad for your back in this regard. So let's get off the phones if we can, especially to the kids. Message to the kids: hey kids, get off your phones. Okay, when you're ready, raise up the leg that's furthest away from this side of the room and dorsal plantar flex your foot, circle and recircle. I mean, don't get off your phones now if you're zooming in. Stay, because you might be using your phone for that. It's very good usage of the phone. And then heel in, toes out, cross that leg over the other one. Lift the foot that's on the floor off the floor. Plunge through the gap, and you can either reach around the back of the thigh or the front of the shin, or use a belt. And a bit of rolling about. See if you can find, a wordless moment. In some of the Vedic texts, most notably the Yajur Veda, some of the songs /hymns are interspersed. The words within the hymns are interspersed with what are called stobas. Stobas are sound particles that have no lexicographical meaning. They're not words you can look up in the dictionary. And there are many of them: hom and him, and of course om. And so these are considered by some scholars, like Stahl, the scholar Stahl, Staal, to be interspersions of primary or primal or proto-language to bring in a sort of another level of integrity, you could say, to the hymn, to the prayer, the language, before the structures of language. Some of the sounds that hominid ancestors may have made, even before they had formal language. Some of the sounds, of course, even animals make a lot of communicative sounds. Already, Zaphod, our cat, who's clearly now, the last couple of days, he started talking, not literally chatting, but making cat noises. He's got quite a rough meow, which I'm quite fond of. But I seem to know exactly what he's asking for. So sometimes he's meowed and he wants some grass from the garden. We haven't let him out yet. He wants grass from the garden. That's one meow. Another is, will you come up to the room that I feel safe in with me and tickle my tummy? That's another meow. Another is, I'd quite like a glass of water, and so on. It's got various meows. Anyway, it's a long chat, but it's just basically saying, find your versions of these proto-language sensations by finding richness that can only produce proto-language, like ooh and ah and hoof is one. I don't know how you spell that. Hoof. Okay, back to center. Both feet down. Let's all take a deep breath. Let's really let go. Let's take a few. Let's let them just roll through us. A few deep breaths. Jaw passive, lower back passive. Let's raise up the other leg, and similarly dorsi and plantar flex the foot, back and forth, circling if you wish. And when you're ready, heel in, toes out, cross that leg over the other one, lift the foot that's on the floor, off the floor, plunge through the gap between the legs and interlace around your far shin or back thigh, or use a belt. And then roll around. These wordless or expressive only moments are like dvaras, dvara meaning door in Sanskrit. Looking for sensations that are suitably rich, when you're ready, release and place. Take 3 deep breaths, deliberately deep. Take the block from under your head, put it under your pelvis, across the sacrum. Relax your throat. Hands could be on the hips or the ribs. I think it's quite useful to open up the chest. So that's a sort of tucking in of the shoulder blades and propping yourself up on the top of the shoulders. Couple of meditative moments. Okay. Lift up your heels, walk your feet in a little bit. Gently remove the block. Let your shoulder blades move out away from each other. Scoot the buttocks under. If you're using a block for Shavasana, replace it. Palms face up. Shoulder blades scoot under. If you want to put a blanket over you, then please feel free. Shava meaning corpse in Sanskrit. As I've mentioned before, there is an alternative word used sometimes for this posture. If you find shava to macabre, which if you find the word corpse to haunting and spooky, you could use the other name, mritasana. Mrita doesn't mean corpse, so that might be not, but it does mean dead. So it's not much better, actually. So dead pose, or corpse pose. Dead here meaning the death of the constructed self and its various labels. So a sort of a surrender to the great before any of the labels, before a label of male or female or any other label, lots of them available, or before a label of young or old, or well or unwell, or wise or unwise, or whatever, any label. Before there is this. Nameless, ageless, timeless, deathless, labelless. And I always like to bring us out of corpse pose with the sound of breaking glass. So, wiggling the toes and fingers, nothing more relaxing than that. And then when you're ready, the Zoomers might not have heard it, but we heard it. Bend the legs, place the feet on the floor. Scoot the buttocks under, relax the lower back completely with a deep breath. Roll onto your side facing away from this side of the room, with your knees drawn up. And then rolling again when you feel ready, so that you face towards this side of the room. When you feel ready to come up, bring yourself up real easy from the side. And with real consideration for all beings of the world, without any exceptions, whether they be humans or animals or any kind of being, birds, insects. And we'll listen to these words and affirm, if we feel to, with the word Om. May any benefit that we've gained in our acting in this way go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. Thanks so much for coming. I've advertised yoga teacher training enrolling in September. 24 years of yoga teacher training. Join us if you can. 22-month course. And I'm also advertising my late summer immersion at Gales Retreat Center. And also, while I'm on it, my winter solstice immersion at, it's over the winter solstice. So anyway, the 2 immersions. I hope you can make it, or teacher training, or just keep coming to Zoom, or do whatever you like, as long as you're happy and well. That's all I care about. Love you. Thank you so much. Oh, you beautiful people. You. Yeah. Bless you. Blessings. Stay happy. Stay out of trouble.